Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are going to check out another Schleich figure, and this is another fairly new Schleich figure, not super new, I think it's been out for a little while now, but this is a very interesting color scheme of their Tyrannosaurus Rex. The Rex itself is kind of an older Tyrannosaurus. They have since given us a newer version of the T-Rex, but they also released this paint variant of the older one, and it's quite easily the most patriotic Tyrannosaurus Rex that has ever existed. And yes, I know what you're thinking, the lower part of the body is a gray, not a white. But regardless, he looks super patriotic and I don't care. But initially when I had seen this figure, I honestly wasn't super sold on it, but I will say, actually having it here in hand, it is far more appealing than I ever realized it would be, and I'm actually really happy to now have it here in my collection. This is the third paint variant of this Tyrannosaurus that I have the opportunity to enter into my collection. I have the original green, then there was a reddish Walmart exclusive sort of Rex. We now have this one, and I think there might have been a gold one too at some point, but I'm not 100% positive on that. So anyway, let's go ahead, jump straight to a closer look right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Rex, one of the things straight away you could probably pick out with this Tyrannosaurus in comparison to the newer one that they've released is this one definitely has a very Jurassic Park inspired look to it. So I'm pretty sure that was probably the inspiration for this type of a sculpt, although I will say that once Jurassic Park had released, it kind of changed the way everyone looked at Tyrannosaurs, and a lot of the Rex figures that we had thereafter for quite some time were all kind of based on that Tyrannosaurus, so that's probably the reason that this one has that same style sculpt, as many figures following that had a very similar look to the JP Rex. And although this one definitely has, again, a similar look, there are definitely some pretty significant differences throughout this figure in comparison to the JP style Rex that definitely gives its own unique charm on top of having that kind of JP type of a look. But the detailing on the head sculpt of the Rex is fantastic. You can see so much really nice texturing to the skin, lots of kind of cracks and creases in the skin, and you can also see some very nice larger scales here as you reach back here behind the eye socket, as well as some nice scale detail there in the palate area. You can see the detail around the eye is beautifully done as well, and we have a very nicely painted eye. I like that they painted the eye primarily with like a dark black, then they've given the eye a yellow, and then given it a nice black pupil. So the eye itself is very nicely defined because it has that black circling around the yellow, but then also looks really beautiful in general as far as the actual application of the paint, and it's beautifully glossed on top of everything. You can see the nostrils are sculpted out up here at the tip of the snout, and everything has been hit with a really nice dark wash, so it all pops beautifully. You can see just how nice the skin texture here of the lower jaw looks because of that really nice dark wash. And as far as the coloration, what we have is a really nice reddish coloration that runs up here on the snout, and it also comes down here onto the side of the face, but we have a nice blue that runs throughout the lower part of the upper jaw into the palate and then up around the eye socket. And then you also have a gray down here on the lower jaw. The jaw, of course, is articulated and actually works super nicely, very smooth articulation with the jaw. You can see that the tongue inside the mouth is very nicely textured, and in general the inside of the mouth has a quite nicely detailed appearance, and you can also see that the dark wash has been applied on the inside of the mouth as well. We have a nice dark red for the coloration of the tongue. The detailing here on the top of the head as well looks gorgeous, especially that scale detail that runs through right here. You can see how nice each and every scale looks, again, due to the dark wash. I love when Schleich applies dark washes to their figures. As you lead back here into the neck region, you can start to see some osteoderms and stuff picking up here and there, as well as a ton of skin creasing and everything in the neck region, showing off the movement of the Tyrannosaur having its head in a slight right-leaning position, and actually a little bit of a head tilt it has going on too, almost looking kind of curious. But you could see again that we follow that trend of like the red up here on the top, and then the blue here in the center, and then a light gray kind of coloration here on the lower jaw. And look at those skin wrinkles here on the underside of the throat, really cool looking. As we move back here into the body, you can again see that the arm sports some pretty decent muscle definition, very JP style arm sculpt here. Again, a little bit longer than we would like to see on a Tyrannosaur nowadays, but this sculpt has been out for quite some time. You have some nicely painted nails with a black coloration, and you have some nice creasing and everything here behind the arm, as well as some fantastic scale detail here in the stomach region. Very reptilian looking scale detail throughout. And then this area, we actually have this other area of color variation with the Rex, as we have this nice light blue that spots through. And I think that's one of the things that really makes the paint scheme kind of appealing to me, because if it were just the dark blue and then the reds, I feel like it wouldn't look as nice. But the addition of these light blue spots and stuff throughout actually really amp up the appeal factor as far as I'm concerned, and definitely help to make me enjoy the Rex a lot more. You can pick up on the hip bone, nicely elaborated in the sculpt right there. As you move down into the thigh, the muscle definition is very, very much so visible. You can see the kneecap as well as some nice calf muscles, and of course the scale detail throughout those areas looks really nice, all the way down here into that very nice looking foot sculpt with some scoots down the course of the toes, and you have some nicely painted claws as well, with again a black, and you do have dew claws back there that you can see. As we move back up here into the tail, you can kind of see how the skin is stretching off of the tail here with the movement of the thigh right in this general vicinity. You can see the Tyrannosaur is almost in a neutral position with the way that the legs are positioned, but they're kind of leaning forward a little bit further than just standing straight up, so it almost has a slight crouch to the Rex, and you can see how the skin is reacting due to that movement, as well as some more really nice creasing right here. And then as we lead out the length of the tail, you continue to see how fantastic the scale detail is. The blue here kind of tapers off, and then the tail transitions to just the red and gray, but it looks pretty cool. We have a nice curve to the tail. Again, I have always loved this sculpt. I don't know why. I've just always been really drawn to it. I love the JP Rex, and I think that's one of the reasons why I've always had a very soft spot for this sculpt from Schleich. You can see that this side as well is painted pretty much just like the previous side. There's no real difference here in the head sculpt or anything as far as like different movement or anything like that. Same deal with the neck region. You can see lots of creasing and everything throughout. Again, very similar, because although the Tyrannosaurus does have a slight head tilt and a slight turn in the neck, it's not anything super drastic that would cause a dramatic difference on this side over the initial side. The arm sculpt is almost in the same position, but you can definitely see that the right side is up a little bit further than what we see here on the left side. We can pretty much see the same amount of detail here in the stomach region like we had seen on the initial side, because again, the legs are almost in a neutral position. You can just see that the knee is ever so slightly forward, more so on the other side, kind of like the arm, than what you see on this side. And you have some more nice skin wrinkles and stuff here in the lower part of the stomach. You can yet again see the skin stretching off of the tail. We have that really nice sculpt for the tail with a nice curve to it. And again, another nice looking foot sculpt over here. And the detail on the underside of the Tyrannosaurus as well is really quite beautifully done. Even the undersides of the feet are given some very nice minute detail. Lots of skin creases and wrinkles and everything here on the underside of the Rex. So definitely a fun Tyrannosaurus. If you are a fan of the original release of this T-Rex, you're probably going to like this one as well. As far as a size goes on our Tyrannosaurus, for a length from the snout to the tail, you are looking at about 11 inches or 28 centimeters. And then for a height, the highest point's probably the snout right here. You were looking at about the 5¼ inch range, or about 13.5 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Robert Muldoon, the Attack Pack Colovisaurus, as well as the newer Schleich Tyrannosaurus in comparison to the older Schleich Tyrannosaurus. And you can see how cool those two Tyrannosaurs look in comparison to each other, but you can also just generally see the evolution of the Schleich Rex as it kind of turned into almost that JP style Rex with this release, and then it morphed into a newer, very different and very non-JP style Tyrannosaurus with their newer release. But also, hopefully these figures will help to give you a good idea of a size on the Rex. Definitely a very nicely sized figure. I would say sporting a pretty decent size overall. So this super patriotic Schleich Tyrannosaurus Rex is actually a really fun release from Schleich. Definitely enjoy this way more than I expected to. And it's not that I came into this wanting to hate on the figure. I just wasn't so sure how naturalistic the colors would look on it once it had arrived. And I will say that it actually looks far more natural than I expected it to. Almost a similar paint scheme to something that I would expect to see on like a Beasts of the Mesozoic figure, maybe, sort of, because they have those kind of flashier colors, but they make them look natural, and that's actually kind of what I see here with this Rex, although at the same time sporting, again, almost a patriotic type of a look, with kind of having a red, white, and blue, but the white is actually a gray, not so much a white. But it's actually a really fun repaint of the Schleich Tyrannosaurus. Again, like I had stated there a little bit ago, if you are a fan of the initial release, the green one or the red one of this Rex, you'll probably like this one, and I think that the coloration on it is nice and naturally applied as well, which is not something that I usually ever see Schleich messing up. Would be an actual paint application. It usually looks like nice natural body color on their figures, and I think that's pretty much something that can be said for this Rex right here. Like specifically the spots. Sometimes when companies apply spots to their figures like that, they can look very paint-like, and that's not the case with this. It actually looks like it's meant to be there. It looks like the body color of the animal as opposed to just paint on a figure. So that's definitely a huge plus. And the sculpt being kind of Jurassic Parkish, but at the same time kind of not, is always a really fun aspect to this model, because the JP franchise obviously has a very strong fan base, so having kind of a Jurassic Park inspired Tyrannosaurus from Schleich is something that is pretty fun, and again, it's a sculpt that I've always really quite enjoyed due to the similarities between this and the JP Rex, but at the same time it definitely has its own unique appearance as well, so it's kind of like the best of both worlds. On top of everything, you have a really cool, very nicely articulated jaw, which works beautifully, and you have a really awesome dark wash that has been applied to the entire figure, and I love when Schleich highlights their detailing with a nice dark wash, because it really makes the detail pop, but also just generally gives the figures a much more lifelike and realistic appearance. And I feel like they've applied the wash perfectly. It's not too strong, it's not too light, like it's honestly picture perfect for this figure. So definitely another really fun figure from Schleich. If you are interested in this, I will include a link in the description to the Schleich website where you can pick one of these up for yourself. So make sure you head on to the description, go buy this very cool Schleich Tyrannosaurus, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.